David Grossman, well, that was the past and the present, but how about the future? I'm joined by the next generation of Conservative activists to wrestle with the future of the Conservative Party. One Remainer, two Leavers. Jade Smith is a Conservative activist from Teesside. She appeared in the BBC Two series The Mighty Red Car. Tom Harwood is the former head of Vote Leave Students. He's now a journalist for Guido Fawkes' website. Benita Mehta-Palmer is the director for Modern Britain, a new centre-right group that aims to develop policies that will improve the lives of Britain's BAME community. She was Conservative group leader at Watford Borough Council at the age of 25, making her the youngest council group leader in the country. Good evening to you all. You must be looking in horror at what's going on among the older members of the Conservative Party. Tom, first of all, though, you know, you see people that can't even stand together. The split on Europe is so radical. And you had, Philip Hammond saying, these 117 extremists that voted against Theresa May. Is it possible, do you think, for the party to stay together? Do you think it's actually better to have a clean split?
We've been through this in the past. There were big splits in the Conservative Party, not as big as in the Labour Party, but still significant in 1975. And do you know what? The side that lost shut up, put up, and got behind the new policy. I feel like that's what has to happen to the side that lost in 2016.
But it does look that's not likely to happen. There are some very bitter divisions there. If that's the only way, and it doesn't work, then what happens? I mean, do you think the Conservatives are too fixated on Europe, and for younger people, for example?
Well, there needs to be leadership on other issues, and obviously Europe has become something all-encompassing because what we've seen over the last 2.5 years is just prevarication after prevarication. The leadership has wanted to kick the can down the road, and therefore it's become all-encompassing. If actually we had a clear policy from earlier on, we'd have been able to focus on other issues.
Well, let's look at the future, Jade, though, because what kind of conservatism do you embrace?
I did like the social policy of David Cameron, such as the big community, big ideas, NCS, but also I'd like to see sort of the government looking towards areas like the northeast of England where we need people like Ben Howsham and Simon Clarke pushing forward and giving us free ports and carbon capture and looking at our industry and how we can draw it back to the UK into areas like Redcar that have seen a decline in the last few years.
And Theresa May came to Redcar and she talked about social inequality. And did you have a lot of faith in her to deliver on that?
I've never had much faith in Theresa May. She wasn't elected by the members as our leader, she was given it. When she came to Redcar, I listened to what she had to say and I did understand why she said it, but there's a lot more. We need local people to fight our corner, they don't understand it in London.
Well, but from your point of view, when you look at what's happening here, do you think it's possible to reconcile the party in the direction that Tom is suggesting?
Absolutely. I think as a party, we've always been a broad church, and despite our differences, we will come together. I have no doubt about that.
But you say that, but actually, when you look at some of the deep divisions, and I am not actually trying to foment those divisions. You saw them there in David Grossman's film. This is incredibly serious stuff here. And, the danger is, of course, that, you might say, if we go any further on this, a Labour government will go in, we'll be out, we'll be in the country for the next term. That's a massive problem for you. You'll be the young generation that are not in government.
Yes, it's a fear, but I do think that having those debates publicly is actually quite brave. We are having these debates, we are honest about our views, but I do believe we will come together. I see it in our party, I see it within the activists, I see it within the politicians.
Jade?
We see it all over, so even in 2017, my association had division, councillors wanting to remain, councillors wanting to leave, but we all came together to campaign to get our MP elected, and we did it.
Much of this will depend on the leadership of the party, and we now heard explicitly from Theresa May that she said that she'll be gone by 2022. Well, she'll clearly be gone a lot earlier than that. What kind of leadership? What would be the signal, the message given by the choice of leader? What kind of person would you think would be somebody that you think should lead a modern Conservative Party?
A modern Conservative Party, I'd like to be led by someone like Johnny Mercier, seeing the 2015 intake coming forward and then obviously the 2017 ending up with a Conservative Party where the old guard are gone. There's no old guard, and we sort of start from afresh and we've got new ideas for younger people to draw in those younger voters.
Tom, do you think this whole exercise over Brexit has jaded people towards the existing senior figures in the Conservative Party?
I think to a certain extent that's true. And I think that Theresa May was picked to be leader of the Conservative Party for the reason of being boring. She was there to sort of calm the markets, to steady the ship, whatever. And turns out that isn't such a good strategy when you're trying to sell a vision in an election. So I think whoever replaces her has to be someone who has a vision, who believes in something, who can put forward those foundational principles
But
of our
what would
party.
those foundational principles be?
They have to be to do with emancipation of the individual, of individual liberty, of open free markets, of all of these things that we know work the world over to deliver people from poverty and grow the economy.
What kind of person would you like to see lead the party?
I'd like to see someone that has more, you know, all-encompassing appeal to the everyday person. I think people are in need of politicians who can really connect with them, and that's what I'd like to see within the next leader. I think Theresa May has done a stellar job of making sure that we have some kind of stoicism, really, in making sure that we are doing what we can on Brexit. It's such an impossible task. I really feel for her, and actually knocking on the doors, that's what I'm hearing from people who aren't just Tory voters, from Labour and Lib Dem voters too. So there is much of that happening on the grassroots.
Thanks very much indeed. Today, perhaps for the first time in his presidency, there was a surprising degree of caution in Donald Trump's tweets as he rode back from the earlier vitriol he'd flung at his former attorney, Michael Cohen, now sentenced to 3 years in jail.